This is the TeamClearCoat podcast. We're two friends finally doing something about our obsession with cars.
We're probably not doing it well, but it should be fun, and we might actually learn something along the way. I'm Dave.
And I'm Ian, and this is our show.
Ian.
Hello, Dave.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm even better this time. So we just got done talking to Alanis King, staff writer for Jalopnik.
Jalopnik, Alanis King.
Yes. And we had a great discussion talking about cats, hell and otherwise.
Yep.
BMW and their Apple CarPlay nonsense that they're doing.
We learned a new word to describe a Fiat 500L.
Yes.
Besides disgusting.
Yeah. And also we talked about car culture, women in car culture.
Yeah.
And had a really great discussion around all that stuff. So before you listen to the rest of this, go follow Alanis on Twitter. She is Alanis N. King on Twitter, and read all of her stuff on Jalopnik. She has a great voice, and she's one of the best kind of newer automotive journalists out there.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Enjoy the show. Ian.
Hello, Dave.
We have a guest on our show today, Ian.
We do. Somebody foolishly agreed to come on. Alanis King from Jalopnik. How are you?
I am good. How are y'all?
Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic to hear.
So welcome to our blanket fort in my basement.
Well, thank you.
So before we started recording, you mentioned you were tooling around in a Hellcat hauling firewood. Tell us about that.
It's actually not firewood. So my husband got the wild idea to build a TV stand. And so we brought some wood out to my parents-in-law's house so that he could cut it because he does not have a table saw to cut it with. So we're just out here and he's cutting wood to make a TV stand, and hopefully that works out well because right now it's just a bunch of pieces of wood in my entryway at my house.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right now it's litter, and then eventually it'll be a TV stand.
Hopefully it will be a TV stand. We are hoping to get to that point.
Okay.
I have full faith in him.
Nice.
Totally.
Nice.
Funny enough, we both actually also have half-finished house improvement projects going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always fun.
It's fun.
It's always a great state when it's like half finished and you're like, this is going to get done at some point, right? Like,
right?
Well,
maybe.
Well, the thing is, our entire house is like spotless, right? And he leads that charge, and I'm a little bit behind him. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really want to do my dishes tonight, but I'll do it because our house is spotless. And now we just have a bunch of wood in the entryway. So it's really fun. We have people come over. I had some friends come over and see the Hellcat today. I was like, oh, excuse all of the lumber in the entryway with my workout weights on it because we're trying to bend the lumber in a different direction. So we just have like my pink dumbbells on the wood in the entryway, and it's just great. It's a nice contraption we've got going.
Nice. So tell us what you think of the Hellcat.
It's fun. It's enjoyable to drive. It makes you feel like if you get too arrogant behind the wheel, it is going to bite you and slam into something because you deserved it because you got too arrogant. It's not like a super comfortable performance sedan, something like that. It doesn't have that type of feel where you're like, I'm in control and I can drive this really well. It's like it's in control and you are at its mercy, so you better behave.
Right, yeah, it's like a hang on sort of car rather than like you sink into it sort of thing.
Absolutely. That's kind of the vibe I've gotten from it. I've had it for 7 days now, and it's fun, but if you gas it too hard, it will sure make you feel like you're going to launch into something.
Yeah. We drove a wide body at an event in the mountains here, like in the fall, and it's one of those. It was weird. Like it never shrinks around you. Like it's always like it's big.
Yeah.
It is cartoonish how big it is. It's like I feel like I have the wide body too, but even just the hood on the Hellcat, it feels like you're on some kind of online racing game or a simulator where the hood has to be exaggerated so that you can see that there's a car in front of you, you know? And that's kind of what the view is like. It's like, oh my goodness, I can I can see the hood, and I only ever felt like that, I think, on the DB11 because the hood is so gigantic. But it's like, it's cartoonish. Like, you can see it, and it's there in full view. And the wide body is interesting. The first day I had the wide body, I was leaving a Walgreens parking lot, and it has like entrance and exit ramps, really tiny ones to go into the Walgreens parking lot. And I like skirted it through this little exit pathway, and I was in the merging lane to get onto the road, and I had no idea how large the car around me was. It was really disorienting. And so I just sat there kind of waiting for everybody to pass because I didn't want to make the wrong move and like slam the splitter into something. So I'm sure I looked I'm sure I looked very dumb in this very visible vehicle, just sitting in the merging lane, kind of waiting for everybody to go past so that it was safe, so I wouldn't smack the splitter. And yeah, it was kind of embarrassing, but that's okay. I got used to it.
It's a little bit different making an automotive move like that in public versus like when you do it in like a rental Hyundai Accent.
Yes, exactly, because I've got this Hellcat, and the people who drive by who know what a Hellcat is, they are just like, hey, that's a Hellcat, and here I am just sitting here like, I don't know how big this car is. I'm going to wait and be safe.
Right.
And so it's embarrassing. It's okay.
I think we need to bring back curb peelers for Hellcats. Yeah.
You know, it would be fantastic because I sure needed a sense of what was around me, and I did not have it. And, you know, the little dips in the road do not fare well with that splitter, and I did not want to scratch it. So
Yeah.
You actually you needed to borrow some technology from the passenger that you had in the Hellcat on your Twitter feed, your cat.
Oh yes, she has some whiskers, so she knows when she can get behind things and when she can't, when she can fit, and she has some long whiskers because she's overweight. That's okay though. That's okay though. She's cute.
She's adorable.
My mom calls her Petite because she's very small. She was the runt in the litter, so she's very small, but she's also overweight. So Petite is fat and petite at the same time. So my mom calls her Petite, and I'm like, hey, Grandma, like, you need to be nice to your grandchild.
Okay.
That's your grandchild you're talking to. And so, yeah.
That makes me think of like a Fiat 500L. That's a petite car.
Petite, exactly.
Yeah, no,
now,
this is the thing.
Just like a very useful word?
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you for giving that to us.
I don't think she did. I don't think we could just steal
we
that.
just took it, Ian. We just took it.
It took us about 4 minutes to get on the topic of my cat, and now I'm taking him running with it. I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, I did have her in the car. She was very freaked out, but I got permission from FCA to let her in the car because I was like, hey, she has claws, and if she freaks out, she has claws. And FCA was like, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's going to need the claws because it's fast.
Yeah.
We're like pretty new to the automotive journalist community, but I'm fairly certain that that's like the least weird request they've gotten like this week.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. No, so she was cool with it. She was like, yeah, totally, just put a towel down so when she sinks her claws into what she's sitting on, she'll have something to grip because the Hellcat's fast. And I said, okay, cool. I'll put her in there.
They're going to start including like a seat cover for cats in the press kit.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Well, the good thing is it wasn't leather, so she was fine, and she actually did not poke one of her claws into anything. I was so impressed. I gave her treats, which is why she's overweight, because I was really impressed with how she handled it, because she was freaked out when I put the harness on her to get her in the car. But she was so good. She just did her little sniffing, and we took some pictures of her, and she was very well behaved.
I think if every time I didn't destroy the interior of a car someone gave me a treat, I would also be petite.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So like my bar is very low. I'm like, wow, you're so cute. You want a treat? Wow, you're still really cute. Like, you haven't gotten ugly.
Yeah.
So you want another treat?
Yeah.
And so my bar is very low, but that's okay. And she also eats every time I eat. So like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, she gets treats and I throw them. And so it's a routine. And so she just gets a lot of treats. And It's okay though. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a happy cat. It's fine. Yeah.
I used to have basset hounds, and like the way that they look at you with their sad eyes, it takes every ounce of self-control not to just give them all of the dog jerky,
Okay,
in the world.
exactly. And
Yeah.
her eyes are like permanently glued wide open. And so she just runs around the house meowing at you, and she has these giant eyes. And it's like, well, I guess if I give you a bunch of treats, you're going to be a wide body, and the Hellcat's a wide body. So it's like you match. So
I
it's
like
fine.
that. Yeah. No, we're showing your Twitter feed picture on the video, and the one where the cat's like looking up with the widest eyes in the world is one of the best things I've ever seen.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
not a widened state of eyes. That is how she is. That is how she is all the time.
Yeah, that's just
Like
standard.
she's like
yeah.
that all the time.
Just
And
full
it's very
moon.
disturbing.
Yeah, I like that. So does she like wake you up like on your face in the morning, like with just completely wide open eyes, like?
Surprisingly not. So she's very much in a routine. So she knows that I wake up for work before my husband does, because I work on East Coast time and he works on Central time. And so she knows that I get up before him, and she just lays under my left arm all night. And when I wake up, she gets up because she's like, "Oh, face washing time. I get to drink out of the sink." And so she takes off and gets up on the sink. But on the weekends, my husband gets up before me. And she doesn't like that because that's out of her routine. So she gets on the dresser and she stares at me and she meows until I wake up. And I wake up and it's just like two giant green eyes staring at me from on top of the dresser. And then she keeps staring until I get up. Like if I check my phone or something, she just sits there and stares. She's like, "Mom, we have not had breakfast yet. Mom, you need to get up because I need my treats for breakfast."
I like that. Has your cat been in any other cars, any other press cars? Or is this just cat and the Hellcat?
No, because when I had the S4, it was a leather interior. The Miata was also a leather interior. She's very nervous and she doesn't like going outside because she came from outside. And she's like,
okay.
"Oh, no,
Not
no,
this
no, no,
again."
no."
Yeah.
So this was just a very special circumstance. And when I take her outside, she puts her face in my armpit because she gets scared. And so it's really cute, but I feel bad for her. And so I just take her out. I take her outside when it's absolutely necessary. And it was because I have a Hellcat. But other cars, I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm just like, okay, I'll leave her inside. And she's nervous anyway. So field trips aren't the best idea with her.
Gotcha.
I feel like I have two cats, and they do not care for the car at all. They hate it.
No. And we couldn't start it. And my driveway is at a very, very steep incline. And so we were like, we can't take pictures of her on an incline. That would look weird. So we had to put the car on the street and bring her out to it because we couldn't have put her in there and then started it because she would have freaked. That Hellcat is so loud when it starts up. She would have been like, I don't like this. And then we would have seen some claws in the seats.
Yeah.
So
and possibly
we didn't
the ceiling.
start it up.
Which would have been perfect because it would also be fitting because, like you said, everything about that car is cartoonish. So like her doing the Wile E. Coyote, like running up in the air without without going anywhere would be really fitting for that car.
Yeah.
Exactly, because I mean everything's exaggerated and it's cartoonish and you're like, wow, okay, well this would be fitting, but no, I'm not going to freak her out because she's freaked out enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So we took our photo ops and my husband took a lot better pictures than I did because he used his fancy camera and I just used my iPhone, which only works about half the time.
But hey, we shoot with what we have, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I'm using his phone to talk to you because my iPhone only works like half the time. So I'm on his phone. Poor man.
Speaking of iPhones, we'd love to talk to you about an article that you wrote for Jalopnik about the Apple CarPlay BMW subscription model.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go for it.
So we're both IT guys, and the car podcast thing is a very much unpaid hobby of ours. So we like to talk about technology in cars and that sort of thing. And especially we like to highlight, blatant fucking nonsense like charging for Apple CarPlay. Why do you think?
Actually no. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, why do you think legacy car makers have been kind of so slow? Some of them to adopt this model of like the projecting of the phone onto the infotainment system, because they all kind of suck at it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe they want to be different and set themselves apart from the other cars because you don't want to get into a luxury car and have the same infotainment system as some teenager's $16,000 starter car. I don't really know, and I also don't really understand the subscription based side of it, because it's like, why would you ask owners to pay for this? I get the reasoning behind it, like, oh, if you're going to lease the car, it would be less over a 4-year lease to pay a subscription every year. But it's like, okay, BMW, but you also keep getting subscription fees for the rest of the life of that car if people want to use Apple CarPlay in it. So you don't really have the best interests of everybody in mind. You have your best interest in mind because you make a lot of money. And it's also just weird to police having a subscription to me for something that's free, or not free, but included in the price of the car, because nothing's free, right? Something that is offered on other cars at a non-subscription price. It's very odd to me. But I did not hear back from BMW when I asked them about it, and I didn't hear back from Apple when I asked them about it, because does Apple get a cut of the profits? Is this going to be something that slowly starts becoming a charged service because you've gotten used to it and you like it? That's what I've always thought about my Discover FICO credit score. I'm like, okay, when's Discover going to start charging for this? Because now I'm used to it and I like it, right, and I want to keep it. And so I don't. It just has a weird vibe to me. But I didn't hear back from either of them, so I didn't get much more context on it other than BMW is going to charge you.
Right. Well, and that's the weird thing, is that like, it's not their technology.
Yes, that's what I thought was so weird. But Apple didn't respond to me. So it sounds just like when I have a problem with my iPhone. Apple doesn't respond.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's a step beyond like them charging, like back in the day when you had to, it was like a couple $100 to get the DVD, the newest DVD loaded for your nav or whatever.
Yeah.
But because at least they owned that.
Yeah.
It was their intellectual property or whatever. But this is someone else's technology that they're licensing as a third party. It seems strange to gouge people on that, but.
And that's why I had those questions, and that's why I called Apple and BMW. I was like, okay, does Apple get part of the cut? Is Apple okay with this? Is this okay with your contract? Like, what's the deal? I didn't hear back from either of them, so I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the third-party aspect of software in cars, because, from a support model, like who do you call when it breaks, and then also these licensing schemes are kind of strange.
Totally. And I think, even with luxury cars nowadays, I'm never going to buy a car that has a million little features that you're never going to use, because how soon are my seat massagers going to break? How soon is this going to stop working? How soon is this tiny little feature going to stop working? And I'm just not into that, because when you have a million little features that people don't always use anyway, that's a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
And I'm just not big on that. Like, seat massagers are cool and all those little features are super cool, but I mean, how often does that break? And then do these car companies, do they get other people to come repair this? Do they repair it? Like, what's the deal? Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot of complication to me. Even my mom, she's looking at a new Indy Miata. And I was like, Mom, the RF is really cool, but that's a lot of little parts that could break. And you would probably be better off getting a cloth top, because she's going to have a convertible no matter what. And I was like, I know it's not as cool, but I would get a cloth top, because that's a lot of little motors that could break at any point. And if you're out of warranty, you're going to be mad. And so for me, it's like the simpler, the better, as far as technology goes, and as far as like the actual physical components of the cars go,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're both, more into analog cars, although you've kind of
Same.
Yeah, Dave's kind of gone to the dark side with the luxury car lately.
Well, it's a luxury car from 2006, so I have a 2006 Infiniti M45. So it's at an odd era of, the nav is completely outdated, but I just turn my phone sideways and put it up in the cubby, and that's my nav, Yeah.
Totally. And like when I turned 16, my mom, who has all the fun cars, right? She has her Miata. She has a Hyundai Genesis from before Hyundai became Genesis. They were trying to clear out all the inventory from 2015 because the Genesis cars still had the Hyundai logo on them.
Yeah, we watched you drag race that car with your mom. That was awesome.
Yeah. So that's her car. Has a big V8, and then she has an NC Miata, and she wants an ND, and I want her Miata, but she won't sell it to me for the right price. So, we're just talking about that. And she's always had the fun cars, and when I turned 16, it was like, okay, you get the family travel car. We're gonna get you something that gets 40 miles to the gallon on the highway so we can take it on trips. So I got an Elantra, and I love my interior because it's all analog. And when we were picking out the car, it was a $2,000 option to get a touch screen in the car. And I was like, this is too distracting. I can't, no. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, Mom. And when you're 16 and your parents are offering to buy you a car, you're going to try to milk all of it, right? I was like, no, not that option. Not into that. Yeah. I want the analog car because I don't want to poke all the screens and stuff. It's just, I've gotten more used to it now that I drive cars for a living, but at the time it was like, this is dangerous. I don't like this. So totally in favor of analog.
For sure. Yeah. So we definitely wanted to talk to you more about drag racing with your mom and like you said, her getting to own the fun cars and passing down the family cars to you. But yeah, so walk us through the drag racing experience with your mom and all of that. And obviously your mom's a fantastic car enthusiast. Give us some background on enthusiasm within your family, and also probably the rough Thanksgiving conversation that you guys had because you couldn't land on a sale price for the Miata.
So yeah, my mom has always been into cars. Her father was really into cars. He did even some local racing, and she had some of his. Yeah, she had a lot of his trophies in an older house that she had, and I don't know the story exactly, but they were like renting it out to somebody or something. Somebody stole all the stuff from the attic. So she lost a ton of childhood stuff, including all of his local racing trophies. Oh, no. And so I never got to see them, and it would have been so cool. But he was into cars. She was into cars, and she's always been more into cars on the surface. So she's like, I want a manual transmission. I want a really fast car. She's not into doing her own maintenance or anything like that. She's like, oh, forget that. Take that to the shop. Like her NA Miata, it got to the point where there was too much maintenance on it. She didn't want to do that anymore. And so she traded it in and bought an NC, and somebody ended up buying it, I think, to race it, the NA. But she loved it, but she just couldn't keep paying for the maintenance, and she wasn't going to do it herself because she's very much like, I love driving cars, all that other stuff, forget that. I'll just pay somebody to do it.
Yeah, driving is better than fixing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's been her thing, and she's always been into cars. But me, I was not really that into cars when I was younger. It didn't really cross my mind much. My mom wasn't super outspoken about her thing with cars because she always got a lot of flack for always buying new cars. And so it's not like she totally embraced it all the time, I think. And so I didn't get that total absorption into cars because my mom was like, oh, I'm going to buy a new car. I don't want to talk about it because then people are going to talk back and say bad things about me because I'm buying another car. And so I never really, when I was little, I didn't get that car experience from her. And it actually ended up, we went to a NASCAR race in 2009. We got some free tickets through her company. And we went, and I was like, this is the most incredible thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't know a thing about cars. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on, but these cars are loud and they smell like gas and tires, and I'm into that. And that was the point at which I was like, I'm going to work with cars for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
And I had no idea what anything. I was like, Mom told me that NASCAR race cars were V8s, and I said, "Oh, okay. So is this a V4?" And she was like, "No, that's not a V4. No, that's not really a thing, Alanis." And of course, V4s are a thing. They're just very rare. But I had no idea what was going on. You know, I had no knowledge of cars, and it just became a very steep learning curve of I'm going to learn every single thing I can possibly learn. Because now that I've been exposed to this is what I like. And so it's been a very steep learning curve. And sometimes do feel behind because you're like, I haven't been into this since I was 3 years old, you know?
Yeah.
But it's all a learning experience, and I am obsessed with cars, and I'm obsessed with racing, and so is my mom. So it's really fun. We get to embrace that. And yeah, we did get to go drag racing. That was a blast. But I kind of had to like tell her a little white lie to get her out there. I told her that people just bring their casual daily drivers to drag race them at Texas Motor Speedway on Friday nights. I was like, don't worry. It's gonna be just like yours. There'll be sedans out there. It'll be fine. And we get there, and it's like people are bringing their cars. They're like LS swapped cars in on trailers and stuff. And as soon as we pull in, she's like, "Oh no, you lied to me." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we're already here, and it's been a 4-hour drive, so it's okay." And she was like, "This is not fair. We're going to lose so badly. It's going to be so embarrassing. I am so upset. You put me up to this, and you didn't tell me the truth." So she just went around telling literally everybody there that I put her up to it, and that I could tell her the truth.
Nice. I like that she was focusing on the competitive aspect of it as well. Like that
she was mad.
That she was upset with not being able to be in a position to win some races. Yeah.
She was mad, and we thought we were going to do a little bit better than we did, and we didn't. It was okay. We're like, we'll be fine. It'll be okay. But no, we lost a lot.
But
it's okay though.
Given the fact that you were in a Hyundai Genesis, you were one of the few cars that drove there and also drove home without purging any oil or anything else from the car.
Hey, exactly. Yeah. I actually, when I raced it once, my mom was watching from pit road, and I got up to the starting line, and somebody was like, "Is that a Hyundai?" And my mom was like, "Oh," I was so embarrassed.
So I had a similar experience a long time ago. I had a 91 Taurus SHO, and I took a drag racing, and it was a shit box because it was already really old at that point. And I pulled up to the gate, and they were like, "Okay, it's $7 to watch." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna race." They were like, "But no, it's $7." and I had to have an argument with them that I was actually going to be running this car. And at one point, there was a wave. I could hear from the start line a wave of laughter from the from the stands. It was that bad.
Nice.
And then I won that race. It was against my friend who was in a Civic, so it really wasn't that great. But still.
That's okay. No, we had the same experience when we pulled up. All the people at the gate, like 3 different people were like, are you racing? Are you racing? And of course my mom took that and like ran with it, right? She was like, "Well, let me just tell you." Dang it. Nice. Dang it, stop asking if we're racing. Of course we're racing. Just write the number on the car and we're going to go, okay? And so, she just took that and ran with it. And it was funny when I pulled up to race at one point, the guy doing the starting was like, "You're not going to be able to time me. I'm going to get you all distracted, basically, so that you won't be able to time me and cheat this." And so when he went to drop his hands, of course, I was like, he's not going to get me. It'll be fine. And so he starts talking about the female racer in lane 1 or whatever. And so I start listening, and he got me. he got me because he dropped his hands and I was still listening to him. And I was like, oh, you weren't done talking. And so I had to floor it, and I lost that race because I got distracted because, like, oh, shiny thing. And yeah, it was okay, though. It was fine. I almost won it, and I got a really bad start, but I almost won it.
Nice. No, that sounds like a fantastic day. I mean, exposing family dynamics to complete strangers at a racetrack, drag racing. Yeah, I mean what more could you ask for?
Oh no, my mom and I, we very much, people think we're very entertaining together, and like that's just how we act all the time. And so we've had several different companies reach out to us like, hey, do y'all want to come do this? So we're gonna try to set up a track day with Lotus with my mom and I, which is going to be
amazing.
It's going to be a mess because it's going to be my mom and I.
Are you going to film that for Jalopnik?
Yeah. If we can get it worked out, because we've been talking about it. If we can get it worked out, we're going to do some video from that, and hopefully we'll be able to do that, and everybody can just laugh at my mom and I because we're a mess.
Did you intend that you and your mother would be an automotive journalist team?
No, but she's really into it, right? She's like, you have my job. Oh, the only problem is I'm not very good at writing, and I broke my thumb when I was in the 7th grade, so I never learned how to type. So I can't really do what you do, but I want your job. So I'm like, well, okay, Mom, you got a lot of strikes against you there.
Well, you guys should come to Denver and do ice racing.
Yes.
That'd be a really
I'm actually doing ice driving next month. Not with her, but I'm doing ice driving in Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
There you go. I've heard they have ice there.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I've heard it's kind of cold sometimes, like occasionally.
Ice and cheese, I think, is right.
Yep, and all the sausages. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I wish I could bring her. That would be hilarious. She would freak out. We went to rally school together, and she had a blast.
Nice.
Awesome.
It was fun. She had the best day ever. It was like a little kid.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're rallying. This is so fun.
So how much of these experiences, like, how much does it add because you can see it through your mother's eyes right there?
Oh, I love it because she gets so excited, right?
Yeah,
She's just like, oh, this is so cool. I love cars. Did you know I love cars? Oh my goodness, look at this car. And so it's fun.
That's infectious. Yeah,
have you taken her out in the Hellcat?
I have, and she was like, oh, this reminds me of my Mustang when I was in high school, because she had a Mustang when she was in high school. It was her first car. Her parents were really wealthy. Actually, her dad had died before she got her first car, and so I never got to meet her dad, who was really into racing and cars and everything like that. He died when she was 13, and so it was after he died when she got her first car, which was a Mustang, and her dad wasn't alive, and her mom was like, you're not gonna get a manual transmission. And so she was like, you are gonna get an automatic. And my mom's like, dude, I've been like driving my boyfriend's car since I was like 13, and they all got sticks. It's fine. And her mom was like, no, that's not safe. And so she got an automatic Mustang, and she hated that it was an automatic. And her sister got a Mustang too, but her sister got a V6. And so my mom always makes fun of her sister because she got a V6. And so, but yeah, that's really her only regret, is that her first Mustang was an automatic. But my Hellcat's an automatic too. I was really surprised when they drove it up. I was like, what?
Right.
And so she had a blast. She likes it, and she had a lot of fun. She was like, oh, this reminds me of when I was in high school. It's so powerful. So that was cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're gonna do a jarring transition to we're gonna play a quick round of FMK cars.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so this is a game that we play on the show. It's based on the classic game of Fuck, Marry, Kill, except we play it with cars instead of people because we're nice. So the way it's going to work is we're going to give you 3 cars, and you'll have to assign F, which is you drive it for a day. M is your new daily driver, and K is it goes to the crusher immediately.
Yep.
Okay. So good. So I can use the letters, right? Because I am at my in-laws' house.
Yep.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking that. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
I was trying to do some like speakerphone math there for a second to figure out how safe we were, but I think we're good. I think we got away with it. Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Dave, do you want to go first? Do you want to do
sure.
your straight up one?
Yeah. So let's see here. So in this one, the first car is a rally car. It's the Audi Quattro Group B rally car.
Okay.
And second car, these are all just straight up. Sometimes we throw catches on these, but this is just you're picking from the cars. Second car is a Renault F1 car.
Okay.
And third is the Porsche GT3 Cup car.
Okay. Wow, that makes it hard. Okay. Let's go with the F1 car.
Okay. You could do it for a day.
GT3 is the M.
Okay. All right.
That'd be really fun. And let's go with, sadly, K, the Audi.
Yeah. I think you may have made the right choice as far as longevity for your life.
Yeah, longevity for my life. That was the goal. I'm trying to be very practical here.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be incredibly practical with my choices because it's not fun to live in a fantasy land, right?
Right.
Although I will say you did crush the only car with more than one seat.
Yeah.
So practicality may not be completely part of the picture.
Okay, but I'm very much, I work from home. I'm a loner. I have a cat.
Right.
Because I work from home. So it's very much like I'm by myself all the time.
Right.
So it's okay. It's fine. It works.
Well, and a race car with the Porsche, you can just totally bolt a cat carrier right to the floor in the passenger seat.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking like, all right, what's going to be the most normal to drive around in? Probably the Porsche. Let's go with the Porsche.
And the headlights of the Porsche are just wide-eyed like your cat's eyes, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, like that's why her name is Portia, right?
Oh,
like
nice. I didn't know that. There
Portia,
you go.
Portia. Yeah, her name is Portia. My cat's name is Portia, but it's spelled Portia, like Brutus and Portia from Julius Caesar, because my other cat's name is Brutus.
Nice.
Is she rear engine? Does she carry her weight and like right back her rear legs?
She carries her weight kind of everywhere.
Petite, Ian. Petite.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because she's really like her back kind of sinks down because she was the runt, so she's just kind of silly. So her butt is higher than her back, and so she doesn't look much like a Porsche except for the eyes.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Nice.
I think the eyes that's close enough.
Yeah.
That's close enough.
I think
Well,
you chose well. Given if you'd F the F1 car for a day, like given other racing disciplines like NASCAR, F1, rally, like if you had to just kind of pick between, the popular racing, types, what if you had a shot to drive one of those cars for a day, what do you think it would be? Like Le Mans, F1, rally?
Okay, drive for a day. Like, are we doing a track day? Am I driving it to the grocery store? Or am I going to be like a racer in this series?
Anything you want. You could have it at a completely empty track, you could anything.
Driving into your high school reunion.
Yeah.
I have so many different reasons for doing different things with these vehicles. So I'm a big NASCAR fan at heart, right? Like NASCAR is my number one motorsport at heart because it was what got me into cars.
Sure.
But me myself, I'm not big into making circles. Like I have an iRacing simulator and I would much rather run a road course on there than run a circle track. I love short tracks and stuff like that, but I prefer a road course. So that's hard. For like a track day, I would probably want to do an open wheel car at a road course because I tell you what, racing those stock cars on that simulator is not easy. They're very hard to race on road courses, of course, because they're not really meant for road courses. They go in circles.
Right.
So if I were to do a track day, I would probably do an open wheel car on a road course. It could be, I would pick an F1 car most likely if I were going to pick an open wheel car on a road course because I have other rally experiences. And so it's like, I'd want to pick something that's way out there that you wouldn't really get to do. So if I were to do a track day, I would probably have an F1 car. Now, if I were to be a star in a racing series for a day, I would definitely pick NASCAR because it's just so, like, you don't have a lot of women or a lot of diversity at all in NASCAR, and so I would just make a scene, you know?
Nice.
Yeah,
That's probably what I would do.
It would probably be the most fun one to like make a stir in.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
To, like
and
upset
so
Richard
it would be
Petty,
fun.
that'd be fun.
Yeah. Right?
And I would be like, oh, let me just make a fuss about everything that's going on because I'm only going to be here for one day because that's my stipulation here. And so I would just, I would, it would be fun.
And then at the end of the day, just drop the mic? Yeah.
Yeah, just
Alanis
drop the mic.
out.
I would run all over everything.
Yeah.
And then drop the mic and then be like, all right, sorry. Like, this was my deal. One day, bye.
I think, definitely the NASCAR patriarchy needs that. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I would just eat into that patriarchy real hard. I mean, you only give me like one day, but I can do a lot in one day. I can make a lot of mess in one day.
I wouldn't call it mess. I'd call it progress.
Yeah.
I actually do have a tank top that says destroy the patriarchy. So it'd be like, do my driver interview in this tank top.
Right.
Like, here we go.
Who cares what the sponsors think? Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because actually we did want to talk about another article that you wrote in Jalopnik a little bit ago in early December. I think it was right after this was published was when we contacted you because we were excited to talk to you about it.
Right.
It's entitled "The Comments on This Video About a Lack of Car Girls or Why There's a Lack of Car Girls." And a couple of things that you mentioned talking about your own history really stuck out to me because it was the things that I was thinking about when I was reading your article. Mostly you were talking about getting into cars kind of late and finding that intimidating. And I think that's intimidating for anyone.
Yeah.
And then to also have that extra barrier of entry of
misogyny,
of having to deal with idiots.
Right.
Makes that even worse. So, I don't want to give you just like a super open-ended question, but what do you think if you had to give the State of the Union for car culture?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And misogyny, what would you say? Would you say that we're doing good, that it's in a better place because of the internet and the proliferation of all these like little subcultures, or has it just made like the assholes like more emboldened to say dumb shit?
Well, it's really hard to say because you have a spectrum. Like you have a spectrum with anything else. You have people who are great and wanting to listen to you and who understand and who can take that guilt of being like, okay, I'm a guy in the car industry and I've made these mistakes before and I need to recognize them in the future. And it's really hard to accept that guilt. Very hard to accept the guilt of having privilege in whatever community you're in. And so you have a very wide spectrum. You have the people who understand and they want to get better. And then you have the people who are like, women need to stay home.
Right.
Don't let them near the cars. Why would you let a woman touch your car? Women are meant to pose on cars and that's it. And so I would say it's difficult to kind of give an overall rating of how we're doing. I would say, it's gotten better, but there's still a lot of untouched mindsets in the car community, especially in motorsports, things like that. People just know that this is how things are and this is how they've been. So what's wrong with them? Like my daddy raced and his daddy raced and his daddy raced and what's wrong with all of us being guys? And so it's hard. And that's kind of why my goal with what I write is to introduce these topics in a very gentle way. Like, listen, this is what I deal with. This is what other people deal with. And look, I'm not even close to having to deal with some of the stuff other people have to deal with. The more minority factors you put in, the worse people get treated.
Right.
Just kind of in general. And so I'm rather lucky that I am a white woman in the car industry. You know, at least that's a little bit more normal than being somebody else. And so it's hard. That's why I really try to introduce these topics very gently. Like, look, here's kind of what people do without realizing on a daily basis. You might not have any idea that it's not really okay to email me and ask me to marry you out of nowhere. You know, that's kind of weird. It's not okay if you abuse my contact and try to hit on me. And it's not okay if you make assumptions about my knowledge and you don't want to read what I have to say because you think I'm lesser because I'm a woman. It's some of these actions that people find normal aren't okay. And so I really try to introduce that, like, look, this makes people feel bad and this makes your community not nearly as diverse as it could be, and you're missing a lot of viewpoints. And some of it's as harmless as writing he as a pronoun for something, like for just like a random pronoun that isn't referring to anybody, like a driver and his seat. Like,
right.
If I'm reading that and I'm a woman, I'm like, why am I left out?
Right. Why can't they say there? Yeah.
And it's something as harmless as that, and it also ranges to the people in the comments section who just berate you and berate kind of anybody and just objectify you and act horribly. And so it's like, it's always going to be there, kind of that I'm a woman, and people have different actions that they don't even realize they're doing, and some of them do realize they're doing. That's always going to be there. It's just a matter of everybody trying to make themselves better. And that's why I try not to be combative about being a woman in the car industry. I just try to go, hey, look, this is kind of what people do, and this is what I deal with. And so it's hard to give a rating of like where we're at. Of course, it's better than it used to be. Like, at least women can vote and stuff, you know. But it's not nearly as good and open and just nice as it could be. Like, it's difficult. I had to remove my phone number from my email signature the other day because people had abused it. So I took my phone number out of my email signature yesterday or the day before.
God, that's awful. That's awful.
Yeah, and but I will say that, like, at least you know, there are now some venues in car culture, because I grew up like devouring every car magazine I could get my hands on. And I never remember any of these sorts of examinations of car culture happening.
Right.
You know, like we talked a couple weeks ago on the show about what we've dubbed the Clarkson problem. Of like these. And basically, the Clarkson problem, as we defined it, was that Jeremy Clarkson in particular, and kind of a lot of influential auto journalists in general, are brought car culture to the larger culture and have introduced it in a way that, like, Roger Ebert introduced movies to the larger culture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and there's a big but, like, his speech and everything else is so, you know, problematic, to use a word. But like, at what point is he inhibiting the growth of car culture more than he is helping to grow it? You know. And I think we're almost at that
I totally
point.
agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we still have a super long way to go. And I think that one of the things that you brought up is that there are people in car culture that are making these kinds of mistakes and not aware of it, not understanding that that's something that bristles somebody. And just as part of our maturity, as our growing, you know, our exposure to other people, we learn, you know, just how we can be more sensitive and how we can do better when interacting and making ourselves more approachable to other people. And that's great, because allowing and the approach that you're taking, where it's non-combative, it really has a lot of traction with those kinds of individuals, because it doesn't instantly put them on the defensive, right?
Yes.
Right?
It's the defensive is what's hard, because I mean, I've been in that situation, you know, when I got into college and I took some sociology classes and they started introducing white privilege. You get on the defensive really fast, you know? And so you have to be very careful with how you talk about people's privilege, because people are like, oh, no, I was born this way. I didn't do anything wrong. Everything's fine. And you get defensive really quickly. And being on the other side of that, I've kind of learned how I could better have learned and gone more quickly learning about my own privilege. And the less combative it is, the easier it is for people to kind of understand.
Yeah, I think the quality you're describing there is humility, which is not exactly something overflowing from car forums on the internet.
Yeah.
Or car culture in general, really.
Yeah.
You know? And I have I wrote notes after I read your article, and the first note that I wrote, it was that it feels like because the thread that I noticed, that I recognized in the comments, because I don't get people calling me to ask me out. That's not something that I have to deal with. But the thread that I recognized was like the actually nonsense.
Yes, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, actually.
Right. And I don't know why we have such a bad time communicating to each other in car culture that, like, you didn't fall out of the sky knowing BMW engine codes.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Right? I totally agree, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I get well actually all the time, because it's like, oh, woman, let me tell her my knowledge, and it's like, come on. And the thing is, when one of my male colleagues makes a mistake, and they make a mistake in a blog and they correct it, it's like, okay, yeah, dude, no problem. You made a mistake. When I make a mistake, it's like, she didn't deserve to be here in the first place. Right. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Does she even know what a car is? Fire her, like, get rid of her. She doesn't know what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, we're definitely held at the same standard, aren't we?
Right. And I feel like a lot of the like combativeness that you even see on like car forums or in comment sections, even when it's not directed at a woman or anyone else, like I think it's coming from the same place, but like some of that shorthand is just floating out there, and it's just the most impactful thing that they can say, oh, you're a woman, you don't know what you're talking about, or making a car a donk ruins it, or whatever. Those like casually racist things that are floating out there in car culture as well.
Exactly. And we're working on a story right now about a donk contest, and we're like, I'm the one who's working on it, and I'm like, I need to be as sensitive and view this from as many angles as I can, because I don't want to make the mistake that a man might make when writing about women, because here I am writing about a certain segment of car culture that I am not totally immersed into, and I don't want to make these same mistakes, and I don't want, because I know what the comments are going to be like, but I don't want to make a mistake that could have been prevented by passing it by other people, and so I think you have to be sensitive about that kind of stuff, and you really do need to pass it through people who would recognize if you made a mistake. Like, if a man were writing about women in cars, I would want him to pass it through somebody to make sure he didn't say something really ignorant.
Exactly.
Because then it takes away from the whole thing.
Exactly.
And so you have to be incredibly careful with what you do, and it's a constant learning process. You constantly have to learn from the people whom you may affect with how you act. Like me, I'm not immune from making mistakes that could negatively impact people. Being a woman doesn't take that away from me. I have a lot of privilege myself that I may not recognize when I'm saying something. And so it's just a constant act of checking yourself, no matter who you are and no matter what really you're doing. You just have to check yourself and make sure you're not harming a certain segment of a population who may want to feel normal, basically.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think one of the other frustrating things that, you're talking about going to a donk show and writing about it, like, we have, as car enthusiasts, we kind of have these muscles to approach and be tourists in other cultures. Yeah. In like with humility and in taking someone at their word that the activity they're engaged in is fun, and I feel like with donks and lowriders, for whatever reason, sports car guys can't go into those subcultures, can't be tourists there in the same way that they can if they have a friend who's an off-roader, you know?
Right.
And it's like you don't want to make this differentiation between people because we're all into the same thing. We like this stuff. Why not just embrace it? And if it's not your thing, like that's fine. It's not your thing. But don't make generalizations about certain types of people, certain segments of car culture. Just all that. You don't want to make these generalizations because then that just like that hurts that person, you know?
Right.
And you don't want to do that. Everybody wants to feel like they belong, basically.
Right. Being part of car culture can be a really rewarding and awesome experience. And when especially like when you're seeing things like through your mother's eyes at the track, or when, you know, Ian, you have a 3.5-year-old, when you see like cars at Cars and Coffee through Nico's eyes. Right. And having this empathetic enjoyment, right? For like, just because something might not be your thing, like understanding that like, yes, that is, this person is in love with it. And that is awesome. And that shared passion for cars is a thing that lifts all of car culture.
Right.
And the thing is, a person doesn't have to know every single thing about what's going on to like it.
You're exactly right.
It makes you feel like such an outcast when you may have like a question about something and people are like, how do you not know that?
Right.
Wow, do you know anything? And it's like, come on now. We cannot be super intelligent about every little aspect of every little thing. Like my focus is in racing, and so sometimes I have questions about more obscure parts of car culture because I haven't totally been exposed to that. And it's like, you don't want to be judged for having those questions. You don't want to have people be like, oh, well, you don't know anything. No, it's just that you can't know every single thing about every little aspect of everything. Nobody's perfect.
Right. And the important thing that people need to understand is that there's somebody in front of them that is asking a question, that is showing an interest in wanting to learn more, right? Like you said, Ian, nobody's dropped out of the sky knowing BMW engine codes. Everybody either had to look it up or hear it from somebody, and
yeah,
right. And on top of that, like auto enthusiast, being a car enthusiast does not. Let me back that up. Possession of knowledge does not equal being a car enthusiast. Right.
Yes.
Right. Being a car enthusiast looks like a million different things. Right. I would say that my girlfriend is a car enthusiast, but her daily driver is a Lexus RX 450h. Right.
Yeah.
But she frequently calls back in her mind when she was younger and when her parents had 2 Volkswagen Bugs, and how she would just fly through the streets of Denver in these VW Bugs. Like, you can't tell me that that's not car enthusiasm.
Well, and it's,
Exactly.
it's there in the name. It's enthusiasm. It's
Right.
not encyclopedia.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said about your mother, she buys cars. She doesn't repair cars. She has mechanics do that. And segmenting off somebody that doesn't perform their own repairs or something like that as not being a car enthusiast is super harmful to the community as a whole.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people don't see any wrong with it because it's hard to see wrong when you're not the person who's being wronged.
Yeah.
You know, when you're the person who, you know, every single BMW engine code ever, and you don't see wrong when you're harmfully affecting someone who doesn't have that same knowledge as you, because you're never going to be subjected to that.
Right.
So it's hard, but I absolutely love what I do, and I'm always trying to get better at it, and I'm always trying to have the same respect for other communities in car culture and just in general that I would want men to have for me. And so it's even been as small as, if I'm going to say a pronoun grammatically, if you're going to say a pronoun that isn't referring to a specific person, you're supposed to say he or she, him or her, his or hers. And I've thrown that grammatical rule completely out, and I always use they and their, because it's not fair to people who have had questions about their gender, or who have changed their gender, or who may not completely identify with one or the other. It's just as unfair to them as a man riding a driver in his seat. It's just as unfair to them for me to go his or hers, him or her. It's just as unfair to that segment of the population as it is to me. I've just never had to experience that. And so I've actually changed that a couple of years ago in the way that I write, because I don't want to leave anybody out.
No. Yeah, I try to do that, and I'll say I definitely fall down on that just from being old and force of habit. But but yeah, and that brings up, kind of what we were talking about before about the Clarkson problem, and like needing to we're at a point in car culture and in car history right now where we're kind of at risk of losing the hobby, right? Like with technology advancements and people just becoming less interested in cars,
right? And the culture being more unapproachable because of the megaphones everybody gets on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And we need you're writing on Jalopnik and some others that are actually doing this introspection to figure out how to grow the hobby instead of shutting people out or deciding who's allowed and who's not.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, because it's sometimes you have something that you're really fired up about, and you're like, I've already written on this topic this week. How sick are people going to get of me? Like, how much should I space it out? Because I don't want people to get super sick of me. But at the same time, here it is. Something else has happened that has been so absurd.
Right.
It's just another absurd thing that happened. And it's like, I want to write about this, but I also don't want to chase people off from reading my stuff. And so you have this internal battle with yourself that you shouldn't be having.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. I mean, yeah. And the fact that you have to be worried about saturating people with news that you feel compelled to share because it's for the betterment of car culture and culture as a whole, versus, potentially alienating, I'm just going to say it, asshole readers, that may not be receptive to that kind of information, speaks to the problem as a whole. I like at 2:30 this morning, I read your I had a bout of insomnia for a little bit and read your article, all of the BS that women in car culture had to put up with in 2017.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you enough for writing stuff like that. That's fantastic, because exposure is the first part of finding out. Exposure is the first part of getting the information into people's hands that are going to be more receptive, and like the people that are introspective and empathetic and willing to change that kind of stuff or recognize stuff in their own voice and their friends' voices, and foster that culture from the inside. And so that kind of writing is super important, and we can't thank you enough for doing it.
I appreciate it a lot, because I need to tip the hat to people who are so willing to absorb that and willing to take that guilt upon themselves. Like, oh my goodness, I've probably made a woman feel this way before. I have that guilt about stuff I've done, and I'm like, oh, I need to not act like that again, because that's not right, even though I didn't even realize the harm of it. Right. And so I really appreciate when people are willing to read and listen, especially when something makes them feel like they might have done wrong in the past. And I can't thank people enough who will call me up and be like, how can I be better? How can I be more open toward inviting women and inviting just other people into the car community? I mean, I've had people who own shops ask if they could just call me to bounce ideas around on how to get more women and more little girls to take interest in this stuff, and how they can be better and how they can act better, and like what are some of the things they can catch in how they act, and in order to make things more friendly. And so it's been, for all the people who have been really resistant and hateful and said, Oh, tons of things that I'm not going to say in front of my parents-in-law, and called me tons of things I'm not going to say in front of my parents-in-law. There have been so many people who have been super receptive, and how can I use my position to better this community and make it more diverse and just not so the exact same all around, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't think we should make it sound like there's always been people, or like there's never been people in car culture that have been welcoming, because I think there have been, obviously, because
Totally,
there's
exactly.
been women in motorsports for years. But I think what is new is that there are more people willing to like stand up for people who haven't been represented in motorsport or in car culture, to to call out bad behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the next big hurdle, right? To encourage, and Jalopnik giving people a platform to write about these things is a big step.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. We have 4 full-time women on staff at just Jalopnik, and it's amazing because we get to write things from our point of view, even no matter what you get in response to it. Like, you'll have guys email you who are like, I'm never going to listen to a woman's words about cars. And you're like, okay, whatever, cool. But it's amazing to have a platform to be able to talk about this kind of stuff, because if nobody's around to talk about it, I mean, there are times when I, as a woman, look back on things that have happened and have gone, I should have spoken up about this, but the way I was brought up and kind of just society around me told me to just let it go, you know? And so it's nice to be able to recognize that you've done that and now go look at all the stuff that has happened to me, and a lot of the stuff that I didn't even point out because it was just more polite to do it that way. I mean, I've done interviews with professional race car drivers who have asked me if I knew what Formula One is.
Come on,
man. And you're like, no, tell me.
Right. Because they would clearly ask a man that if he was interviewing them.
Yeah, and you're like, no, tell me. Like, what is that? Never heard of it. Why would I, as a professional rider of cars, know what Formula One is?
Wow.
And so it's like, it's amazing. It's just little things like that. And people don't even realize that they're doing it, you know? They don't even realize that they're doing it. And it's amazing. I did an interview at a short track one time, and the driver, when I was talking to him, he goes, well, now, how did a person like you get into cars? And you're like, what? A woman?
Right.
Is that what you mean to say? Like, it's not smooth. It's not, like, whatever you're saying is not cute or smooth. And I mean, I've had to drop stories completely because story subjects have hit on me, and you're like, I can't do this story if you're hitting on me. It's not journalistic of me to do this story if you are using it as a way to hit on me, because obviously your intentions in reaching out to me for this story were not purely journalistic and wanting to get this story out. And so I've had to drop stories before because subjects have started hitting on me. It's like, would that happen to a man? No.
One of those things that, like, about the internet, like, if you can imagine it, or or culture, like misogyny and culture, if you can imagine that it could happen, it has happened, it is happening, and we need to goddamn
and
fix
honestly
it.
that's, I'm like kind of taking it back a little bit, because it's disappointing to hear, because one of our pet theories that we've been kind of working off of is that car culture online is pretty toxic and bad, but like when you go places, by and large, people are much, much better. But it's disappointing to hear that people are assholes in person too.
The world
it's hard, yeah, because in person a lot of people are really great, but you still have people who question your knowledge. Like, I was thinking about it earlier today. I made some new friends where I live who are really into cars. One of the guys owns a shop. He's going to turbo his Miata most likely. And it's like, they treat me with so much respect, and they treat me like I know things, and it's so different to be treated with such respect and like not questioning whether you understand something, or like, anything like that. It's like, it's just so different than sometimes than what you get a lot of the times. Like there's no doubt that these people respect me and they respect my knowledge of cars, and it's like I love that.
Right.
It makes me kind of not feel like a woman in the car community. It makes me feel like just another person in the car community.
Exactly. Like moving from like what like people would perceive as a tourist, right, in their environment versus as a person that is just part of their environment, right?
Totally.
Because your goal.
I was thinking about it. Yeah, and it's so freeing. But go on.
Your goal isn't to be some, automotive encyclopedic god. It's just to be normal. It's just to be a peer. It's just to be a part of the culture, right? As is, my goal, as is Ian's goal. But it seems like people that are threatened by somebody that they might typically view as lesser than them, encroaching on that territory that they stand on, that's when they get especially upset, and these horrible, whips come out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You're women in car culture are not trying to take anything from anybody.
No,
right?
We're not here to take anything.
Right? And but it seems like a lot of people that react poorly to it are under the misconception that they are, that there's some kind of falsehood to it, and it's really upsetting.
That culture is zero sum,
right?
Like that there's only so much car culture to go around.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and they have to hang on to what they have, right? Yeah, it's like the person at work that would never like share like, oh, well, how does this, mailer get sent out? And like they would never tell anybody because they're worried about somebody, like, because as soon as they tell somebody how it works, that's when their job could go away. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And even I remember one of those comments in that post I wrote about the YouTube comments. Somebody was like, this is our man space and we can't have any women ruining it. And it's like, what is your man space? Like, what? I'm sorry. What does that even mean?
Right.
It's your space to be a man? Like, are you not a man every other moment of your life? Is there, like, what's going on here?
Right. If this is how you're defining your own masculinity, then you have a bigger problem.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I was like, none of this even makes sense. I don't. Right. How do people write this stuff and and accept that this is how they feel?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and so this is what one of the goals of our show was to try to like deconstruct this stew, because there's that comment that you just referred to. There's a lot going on in that comment to unpack.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like, we're at this moment now in car culture that people are finally starting to pick through the stew that we're all swimming in, where there's like a little misogyny over there, and there's a little racism over there, and there's a little bit of
and we're saying, hey, there it is. We need to work on that. Right there, that is. We need to work on that.
Right. So that's been one of our ongoing projects with this show. So we try to like reach out to other people who are kind of doing similar things.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I am so glad y'all asked me to come talk, and I'm glad that you haven't gotten sick of my feminist rants on the car website yet.
No, but because we talk about women in automotive culture a fair amount, because we want to stand against misogyny. We want to stand against any element that makes something that we love, car enthusiasm, unapproachable to somebody else, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, Ian and I are just two guys sitting in a blanket fort in my basement, and we really need other voices to come in and to help us understand like what the language should be and all of this stuff.
Well, and the idea that us two idiots are more deserving of a place in car culture than you or Steph or any other female journalist is pretty absurd, because we have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's really appreciated, because a lot of the time it's just like you're walking in on this culture where a lot of people don't feel like you belong, and it's like it's just amazing what happens. I mean, I get confused for a driver's wife when I'm just trying to like be a journalist at the racetrack. And it's like, what would make you think that I'm married to a driver when I'm just here doing my job? Like, do you go up to a man and go, are you married to somebody? No,
right.
I'm just here.
Right.
I'm here doing my job. And I mean, it's amazing the kind of stuff that happens. I've been doing media at events and you have men make comments about your appearance and things like that, and you're like, are you serious? Can I not just do my job?
Right. We can't thank you enough for doing your job and for writing the things you write. We're so thankful for it.
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad I have not annoyed you yet or anything like that.
No.
But we hear Hellcat noises, so
yeah.
This seems
yes,
like a good...
I am actually leaving my parents-in-law's house right now because it is very dark and I need to get home to my little Porsche because she is probably lonely because I've been with the Hellcat all day.
She needs
her
treats.
I'm now heading out and heading home.
Yeah, she needs her treats. Yeah.
She needs her treats. She only got half of her dinner because I gave her some of her dinner treats because she was so good with the Hellcat earlier. And so she needs the other half. And so, yeah, I just climbed in my Hellcat and now I'm driving off. I have a 30-minute drive home.
Okay.
Well, we will let you go then. Where can people find you on the internet or other places?
On the internet, if you need any more feminist rants, in addition to what you read on Jalopnik, my Twitter handle is Alanis, Alanis, in King. So King, and then my middle initial is N for Nicole. And so that's me on Twitter. And then other than that, I'm on Instagram at the same handle. And you can always find me at Jalopnik writing a bunch of random stuff and driving cars. And I'm sure you can hear my car.
Yeah. Yes. That is the best way any of our guests have exited a show, Ian.
That's fantastic.
There we go. Yeah. You peel out of the show and you peel out in a car, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So we're going to let it go there. Thank you so much for coming on. And everyone go follow Alanis on Twitter.
Thank you. I hope I don't get too annoying. I post lots of pictures of my cat and lots of rants about cars.
That's exactly what the world needs.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Well, thank you all so much for letting me talk, and I really appreciate it.
No problem. Talk to you later.
See ya.
All right. Bye-bye.